Thanks for tuning in once again to more NFL talk on the OFN today. Ryan Dunleavy joining me from the New York Post. I'm host Greg DePalma. Please subscribe to our channel here at YouTube if you like any of our videos. If you have any questions or comments, you can make them in our comment section. We also look forward to your suggestions about any topics that you would like us to talk about, either in the preseason or during the season. Ryan, how's everything going? It was nice talking some Rutgers football with you the last couple of days, but it's time to talk NFL football, finally. Besides the Jets.
Yeah, that's where my focus is. That's where everything the NFL season is here, or at least it feels like that because of this weird. The last preseason game is here, but then there's still 2 weeks that aren't training camp, but aren't the regular season. It's weird to see. It'll be interesting to see how coaches approach these 2 weeks because you get a little more extra time to prepare for the regular season.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. I didn't even realize that there was that extra week off until like a month ago. I was looking over the schedule and was like, oh, wow. I thought they were going to just eliminate the game and then go straight after the third game to the regular season. But, the fans are going to have to wait. I guess we'll have college football to hold us over, which is okay. But, yeah, the NFL does get that extra week. And then cut down day is going to still be, of course, next Tuesday. So we'll find out. And I guess this gives everybody, and also for fantasy football, because I was talking to John yesterday. We were doing our league, and I was saying, hey, we haven't had any activity since our draft. What's up? And he goes, well, usually, the week before the regular season, that's when you open things up and you can decide if you want to pick up any more players, change your mind on some of those late round picks. I said, yeah, you know what? There's a couple of weeks off this year in the NFL. Maybe we should make it 2 weeks. To give us something extra to do for the NFL with our fantasy football dynasty league. So we'll see. Maybe that'll make things a lot more interesting as far as the final transactions with teams having a lot, that extra time to bring in more players and maybe even make some more deals.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go over the NFC today. Then we're going to talk AFC football next week. And then the week after that is the week just before the season begins, or actually the week of the season. That's when we're going to have our final predictions on everything. And as we go through all of the teams, we'll update their Super Bowl futures and anything else that we feel necessary. By the way, what was that story that came out today with McKenzie?
So Isaiah McKenzie got fined from the NFL, the Bills receiver, unvaccinated, and it was an interesting letter. If you go on and look at his Twitter, it shows you exactly the NFL tracked exactly to the minute. Like at 2:15 on this day, you were spotted not wearing a mask around these players, and it was just like it was some serious Big Brother move by the NFL there.
Okay, and so what did he get fined?
Yeah, it didn't say the amount, but yeah, they laid out, boom, boom, boom. This is why you're being penalized. There was no vagueness. It was this time on this day. You broke this protocol. You're putting your team at jeopardy. You're putting the season at jeopardy. I mean, it was heavy-handed. Boom.
And this is because he's not vaccinated.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I
appreciated his sense of humor about it. He basically tweeted like, "Up, I got caught."
Yeah, right. I can't wait for all this to be over. It's going to be another year or two, it looks like. Snail's pace when you leave it to politicians. Okay, let's start with Arizona and the NFC West. Big year, actually, for Arizona and what they're trying to do there with Cliff Kingsbury, because I don't know. Do you think he's got to get to the postseason?
To what? Not get fired?
Yeah.
No, I think they love him out there. So
okay.
No,
as long as they're not a disaster, as long as they don't
Correct.
win 4 games.
Correct. Yeah. I
okay.
mean, look, there's a very good case. We're starting off our show with the best division in football. So, no, I don't think that going, 8-9 and coming in third in the NFC West is going to get him fired, because I think you got to realize how good that division is. Now, look, they have a lot of older players trying to win now. You think of that team, you think of Kyler Murray, but don't forget they have Larry Fitzgerald and J.J. Watt and guys who are trying to who see a chance to win a championship, or they wouldn't still be playing.
Yeah.
So It's an interesting team. I think they could. I think they could be a playoff team,
Sure.
especially if there's three out of the NFC West. But no, I don't think he has to make the playoffs or bust. I think 4 wins he'll be fired. But no, I think Cliff Kingsbury is kind of the mayor of Arizona right now.
Fitzgerald hasn't decided whether he's playing though, right? Because I think I read something where like a week or two ago he was like still undecided. But look, even if he plays, he's only going to be like a role player.
Yeah.
I like the draft pick Rondell Moore if he could stay healthy in the second round, and DeAndre Hopkins is still one of the best receivers in football. So, and then of course AJ Green really helps out again with a complimentary role.
Yeah.
But
Actually,
what's that?
Actually, that Greg, that's my mistake. I apologize. I said Lateral just because I'm thinking of Arizona, but I actually meant AJ Green when I said that.
AJ Green.
So,
Okay.
that's my mistake.
That's true
so.
too. Yeah, with AJ Green. So look, I think they have to.
It's his 10th year. He ain't.
Yeah,
he
not
don't
gonna
have a lot of more years left. He's never won a playoff game. So.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. They got to run the ball. James Conner. I'm intrigued by the pickup with James Conner. He definitely has to add to that running game. They have to give them some balance. Overall on defense, though, they have to keep Chandler Jones healthy. I've mentioned to you during the draft, I love Zaven Collins, so I think and you put him now with Isaiah Simmons from last year's draft, with Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt, and they've got Budda Baker in the secondary. I think this is got the makings of the best defense we've seen in Arizona in some years. So it's just up to Kyler Murray in my mind. I think they've got enough talent. This is up to Murray and Kingsbury and the two main, facets of any NFL team. If they do their job, I think they make the playoffs.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think Seattle, Arizona, San Francisco aren't going anywhere. So
no.
I could see them making I can't see them winning the division. I could see them coming in second. I could see them coming in last.
Okay, now let's talk about the LA Rams. And the Rams, by the way, Arizona, a pretty nice. What do you think Arizona is to win the Super Bowl?
30-1.
35-1. I think 35-1 is a nice number. Now, I can't imagine Arizona winning the Super Bowl with Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray just yet, but 35-1 is a very good number. That's a number that I would normally say with the talent on that team that I would probably invest a little bit of money on. So, the LA Rams are next, and do you think the Rams? Who's the favorite in this division? The Rams, the Niners, or Seattle?
I think it's the Rams.
Okay, they're barely favorite. Who's next?
The 49ers.
The Niners are barely behind the Rams. Seattle is not getting any respect after what happened last year. But let's get going with the Rams. And they just made a smart trade and a happy trade for me as a fantasy owner because I picked up Sony Michel in our Dynasty League for this exact reason. I didn't think it was going to happen this year. I thought it was going to be next year that he was going to be moved to another team. But Sony Michel will now be the number one running back with the Rams, so we'll see how important that is, which it probably should be because they have to run the football for Matthew Stafford. That's the big reason why the Rams are the favorite. They've got the weapons on offense, so this is Matthew Stafford's chance.
Yeah, look, people are listing Matthew Stafford as an MVP candidate, as the biggest addition of the offseason. Look, I think Matthew Stafford's a really good player, but he never got Detroit to a playoff win. People said he never had a running game. Well, I don't know that LA is going to have a great running game behind him. It still might be quite a bit on his shoulders. I think he's a good player. I think he might be a better fantasy football player than he is a regular football player. But we'll see. I mean, look, no more excuses, right? He's never had great coaching. He's never had great talent around him. He's got better talent. He's on a better team, and he's got one of the guys that people think is one of the great coaches. So it's kind of put up or shut up time for Matthew Stafford's career.
Defensively, that's how the Rams came this close to winning a Super Bowl a few years ago. And their defensive coordinator, who was not there at the time and actually did a really good job last year, is gone. So Staley's gone. And how much of a bullet? So they're basically two coordinators removed now from their Super Bowl team. How will that affect the Rams defense? As long as you have Aaron Donald, you're going to be a very good defensive team, and Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, exactly. They have two of the 5 best defensive players in football. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, but again, the rest of the unit, that's going to be the big question. Do they have what it takes to be a top 5 type of defense like they did the year they went to the Super Bowl? And how much of that defense will they need? I don't think they need all that much when you have Matthew Stafford under control, under the controls there. So Rams are going to be awfully good. They're 12-1 to win the Super Bowl. Let's move on next to the San Francisco 49ers now. And the big question in camp, of course, is about who is going to be the starting quarterback. I've never thought that this wasn't, or still isn't, going to be Jimmy Garoppolo's team. I know there's a lot of Trey Lance fans out there. Would love to see Trey Lance get the job, but I just don't see that. Especially, there's nothing that he has shown me so far in the preseason that leads me to believe that that's going to be the case. But Jimmy Garoppolo never stays healthy. So at what point does Jimmy Garoppolo get injured? Trey Lance comes in, and then if he does what he's supposed to do, then that is the end of Jimmy G.
It has a Tyrod Taylor, Justin Herbert situation for the Chargers last year written all over it. That's essentially what happened. Herbert wasn't supposed to play as early as he did. Then he got called upon in a pinch, and he was awesome and never lost the job. So I think that has the makings of that. I think Garoppolo will start the season. I don't think he'll play all 17 games. He never does. So, look, the 49ers are a fascinating team, Greg, because they weren't really as bad as their record indicated last year. They should have never been drafting as high as they were because their roster's kind of loaded. Who do you want to just pick on? Offensive guy? Well, they didn't have George Kittle. Defense? Well, they didn't have Bosa. So, and about 20 other guys. So, it's a really talented team that I think will be back in the double-digit win mark this year.
Yeah, it's again, it's like the NFL. You got to stay healthy. That's it. Who's healthy? Who's not? Bucks were a very healthy team last year. That helped to win the Super Bowl. Kansas City lost their offensive lineman before the Super Bowl, and that had a lot to do with what happened there. So it's just, you got to stay healthy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the Niners have to stay healthy, I think, besides quarterback, obviously. But, hey, maybe that helps them if Lance comes in. Who knows? But that's the offensive line. And I think we saw a little bit of that in the preseason. They have got to make sure that because a couple of their top offensive linemen are older guys, Trent Williams and Alex Mack. So they got to keep those guys healthy. If they could do that, that'll be a big deal. And even Deebo Samuel has been banged up a little bit in his career so far. Kittle's been banged up a little bit. Mostert's been banged up. So it's not just the defense. They also have a bunch of key guys on offense that have to stay healthy. But they're 14-1. To win the Super Bowl.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention losing Robert Saleh could be a big loss too. I mean, he's out here making big headlines in New York, but DeMeco Ryans takes over as their defensive coordinator. He's not that much older than the players. First-time coordinator, obviously, I think as much credit as Shanahan gets, that's to me, I think defense when I think of that 49ers team.
All right, Seattle. Now, as I mentioned before, I don't think they were getting any respect because compared to the Rams and the Niners at 12 and 14-1, Seattle's 25-1. I don't believe that. I have no problem saying Rams first, San Francisco second, Seattle third, but that's too big of a gap. I think this is a very close division, top to bottom close. So because of that, maybe Seattle's a nice value. You mentioned a coordinator change in San Francisco. Well, there's a coordinator change in Seattle. How much are they going to change the offense? Because they exploded the first half of the season last year. When apparently we were told that they wanted to open things up. So Schottenheimer got with Wilson and they started airing things out. Then, as the season progressed and the passing game just wasn't clicking anymore, and Pete Carroll was like, I want to run the ball more. And then at the end of the season, they get rid of Schottenheimer and they bring in a new coordinator. What does that mean? So That's going to be the story. That's the big question, is what kind of offense are they going to run? Because we know how good Russell Wilson can be. We saw it the first half of the season, but we also saw what happened in the second half of the season when he looked pedestrian.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. There's not really much to even add there. I think, how happy is Russell Wilson? Who is calling the shots? Are they a pass-first offense or a run-first offense? And how good is that defense? Because, we're now far removed from the days where they had defensive stars all over the place. Obviously, their linebacking core isn't even the same. Bobby Wagner's still there, but they lost. Why is the name escaping me? Wright. KJ Wright is gone. They just gave Jamal Adams a huge contract. Yep. So Seattle was defense first for most of the last decade. Now they're offense first, and we don't know exactly what their offense looks like other than they have a superstar quarterback and superstar receiver. So if they play into those two's hands, I think they'll be pretty good. If Pete Carroll wants to run the ball, I think they're kind of limiting their explosiveness. This isn't 1999 anymore, Pete.
And that defense, if they're going to take the next step, it's going to be Jordan Brooks and Darrell Taylor, the two high picks from last year who didn't get to play much. They have to perform. That's why they drafted them. And also Jamal Adams. I mean, Jamal Adams getting paid. It's now time for Jamal Adams to look like the superstar that he was with the Jets. We haven't seen that yet with Seattle.
He had a zillion sacks last year.
He did, yeah.
So, zillion sacks, but they're looking for interceptions.
Yes. Turnover type making plays that impact games. Yeah.
Yeah. If he wants to not be a linebacker, he's got to do more than just get sacks.
All right, let's talk NFC South, starting with the Atlanta Falcons and the new regime. So how will this offense look? Will they run the ball more? Yes, no doubt, because the Falcons didn't do a very good job of running the ball at all under Dirk Cutter over the years. So now it's time to get the pressure off of Matt Ryan as he gets a little older. There was a lot of talk about, should we draft Trey Lance and move on from Matt Ryan? They didn't do that. And it's very apparent in my mind that Matt Ryan's going to be there at least 2 more years. I think he's one of the veterans that they feel that maybe we can ride him for maybe 3, 4, 5 years. Who knows? Until he starts slowing down.
I mean, take away Julio Jones, and he's likely to slow down.
Well, there you go.
Look, you say, are they going to run the ball? Who are they running the ball with?
Well, Mike Davis. But they're not going to run the ball like the Tennessee Titans. We know that.
I mean,
that ain't happening.
Can you name their backup running back?
Well, he's a former wide receiver. That's the bad part.
Not Cordell Patterson, the other guy.
Oh,
Audrey Allison. Look, this just doesn't seem like a very good team to me. I'm very much looking forward to seeing Kyle Pitts as a rookie, but I don't think this is a very good team. I think this is safely a bottom 10 team in the NFL.
Well, look, the offensive line also. A lot is going to depend on whether or not Caleb McGarry can live up to that first-round billing. He was injured last year. They drafted Jalen Mayfield. The offensive line can be good. They also drafted Drew Dahlman. Offensive line could be good, and if it is, that helps the rest of the offense. If it's not above average, then yeah, I think they're going to have too many problems on offense because the defense is really where they have major issues. So let's now talk about Carolina. By the way, Atlanta. What do you think Atlanta is?
50-1.
80-1 for the Falcons. Yeah. That's a big number for Atlanta. That's a pretty big number. Let's go to Carolina. And the Panthers, it's the Sam Darnold regime. Now, here's the thing. And if you want, we can comment on Daniel Jones too. I understand a little bit of why the coaches are doing what they're doing, the respective coaches who are afraid to play these quarterbacks in the preseason. But in my mind, when you have guys like Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones that have not proved themselves in the NFL yet, especially Sam Darnold, who's on a new team and a new offense, Why hasn't he played yet? I mean, what are they doing? What do they think? He could practice his way into the regular season?
Yes, I think that's it. I mean, especially teams that are doing joint practices. Look, the NFL, you just said it 2 minutes ago. The NFL is about who can survive injuries, and coaches now are terrified of injuries. If it wasn't the NFL driving TV marketing sponsorships and what the commercial revenue, I think teams would gladly do away with all three. Forget doing away with one. They do away with all the preseason games. They just have joint practices in their stadium, open them up to fans. I don't know if you could sell that to TV. So I don't know that preseason games will ever fully go away because of TV. But coaches do not want these preseason games. They just don't want them. So, that's why Sam Darnold's not playing. That's why Daniel Jones is not playing. That's why Justin Herbert's not playing. Because coaches would rather control the environment. They're control freaks to begin with. So they don't want to take any chances on a preseason injury because, look, call what it is. Matt Rule's not in this situation. He has contract security. But any other coach, your quarterback gets hurt and you go 2-15 and you still get fired. It's like, well, I didn't have my quarterback. People don't have any patience anymore. So, there's not going to be an excuse of you didn't have your quarterback. It's okay that you were terrible this year. You could still get fired. So why would they put their job on the line by not giving themselves a fully healthy roster week one? It's really that simple.
So Sam Darnold will take over now. It's really still going to be about Christian McCaffrey, though. Speaking of keeping somebody healthy. So Christian McCaffrey, who, and it is about time that Carolina, now that he's been hurt, they have got to stop. And I have him on my fantasy team, but they have got to stop putting the workload on this guy. It's just ridiculous. It's too much. He's not big enough. He can't sustain this year in and year out. Sooner or later, you're going to get hurt. So maybe Chuba Hubbard's the guy. That's why they drafted him in the 4th round. So we'll keep it. Look, they have some really exciting receivers. And the offensive line is okay. I still have some questions without doubt about the left tackle spot on Carolina. If Cam Irving is going to be trotted out there at left tackle, I don't know. I mean, maybe Sam Darnold thinks he's still in New York. But other than that, he's got some weapons. He's never had these weapons before.
And the defense has some playmakers. Brian Burns, I think, is a burgeoning pass rusher. J.C. Horn, their 1st-round pick, is a guy who was flying up draft boards just before the, late April, mid-April, just before the draft. He was flying up draft boards. Jeremy Chin had a huge year as a playmaker, as a safety. And they signed Hassan Reddick, who is now reunited with his Temple college coach, Matt Rule, who thinks he can get big things out of him. So I think there's playmakers on the defense.
All right, Carolina. What are the Carolina Panthers?
They gotta be 100-1.
They're just like Atlanta, 80-1. Yeah. Who do you give? Who do you have a chance? Who would you get? Would you give Atlanta or Carolina a better chance?
Carolina.
Wow. Okay. The Saints without Drew Brees. The Drew Brees era is over, and Jameis Winston's going to win that job. So that's over by now, unless he throws 3 picks for touchdowns. This upcoming game.
It's not over, right? They haven't named him the starting quarterback.
We all know he's going to start. So
do we?
Yes, we do.
Do we? Sean Payton loves Taysom Hill. I mean, I think it's Jameis Winston, but I'm not ready to call it because I think in his heart of hearts, Payton wants it to be Taysom Hill, but he can't ignore the results. Yeah. So I think it's kind of an inner struggle there. I think it'll be Winston, but he won't have a long leash.
Oh, no doubt about that. And then also, and look, it's what you want anyway, because it allows you to still use Hill the way that he wants to use Hill. So, which is, I think, the best way to use Hill is to limit his snaps. So that's the best. And Winston's just a better talent. So, but he has to obviously stay out of trouble. And look, Alvin Kamara, we know how good he is. He's your number 1 running back in fantasy. Marquez Callaway has had a phenomenal preseason, and that's huge with Michael Thomas gone. They've got the best offensive line, one of the best in the NFL. So I think they're still going to be fine on offense. Defensively, they've got players, but now it's up to Marcus Davenport. He's going to have to step up now.
It's an aging defense. Like Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore, Malcolm Jenkins, Demario Davis. These guys have been really good players for a really long time. They're all probably on the downside. So maybe Lattimore's not. The other three guys certainly are. So it's an aging defense. Look, Drew Brees hid this team's flaws for a long time. Then last year, he didn't really play good, and they were still better than expected. So it's a very interesting team. I think they're probably a 500-ish team, but could sneak in the playoffs at the bottom. But look, there's no way. They're a long way from last year. They were better than Tampa Bay. I think they're a long way behind Tampa Bay now.
Yeah, this is the only way that New Orleans has a shot for the postseason is Jameis Winston's going to have his best year of his career. That's it, and it could happen.
He made a Pro Bowl once.
Yeah. So, Tampa Bay. By the way, what's New Orleans? What are their odds?
That's an interesting one. Probably 40 to 1.
40 to 1. Right on the number.
Yeah.
A little bit better than, a lot better. Half better than Carolina, Atlanta. And then Tampa Bay, the Bucks are, I have not seen, actually, if you look at the odds in the NFC, the only team, the Rams are 12 to 1. They're the second choice. The first choice is Tampa Bay. What's their number?
2 to 1?
No. Not the NFC, to win Super Bowl.
To win the Super Bowl, probably 6 to 1?
7 to 1. So, which is not bad, if you're a big Tampa Bay Brady guy. But look, everything worked out for the Bucks. They did what a lot of NFL teams do on their way to a Super Bowl championship. They get hot at the right time. And that's exactly what they did. Sure, it helped a little with what happened in Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers drama with LaFleur and stuff. But, hey, they earned it. They made big plays. They have Tom Brady, who's the greatest player maybe in the history of sports. So now can they do it again with everybody back?
Yeah, I mean, why can't they? I mean, Tom Brady does it every year. And the big story last January was like they have to win it this year because there's no way they can keep Godwin and Antonio Brown and Gronk and the defensive guys, Sue and Levante David and Shaq Barrett and Pierre Paul. They're never going to be able to keep all these guys. And, they kept them all. So I think they're the first Super Bowl winning team ever to bring back all 22 starters. First one in free agent era to bring back all 22 starters, which is, it's crisy. And, you didn't even get to the rising young stars like Antoine Winfield Jr. or Sean Murphy Bunting or Tristan Wirfs on the offensive line. I mean, it's a really, really good team. It's a 13-3 team.
And
14-3, excuse me.
And as far as the makeup is concerned of what they had to do last year, what was interesting because you get this every couple of years with Tom Brady. Remember, I forget what it was. It was that Chicago game, right? Where we came on that Monday or Tuesday, and we were talking about how the media was criticizing Tom Brady. Because remember how Tom Brady didn't know it was fourth down? And they were all hammering Brady like if maybe he was senile, he's too old, he doesn't know what he's doing. And we had a nice little fun show about that. So what's that about? Field goals? 4 for 4 on field goals?
No, it's Tom Brady trying to figure out what down it is.
So,
remember?
Yeah.
Remember where he was like this? Fourth down?
Yeah.
And then lying about it afterwards? I mean, come on, Tom. Come on. None of us believe that you knew what.
If Sam Darnold had done that, just imagine.
Well, that's the thing. I almost could understand Sam Darnold or Kyler Murray lying and trying to protect himself. Wow, I'm going to look stupid if I admit this. I'm going to lose. Tom, you won 6 Super Bowls. You're the greatest of all time. You can admit you made a mistake. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's
exactly
not
right.
Tarnish your legacy. No one's going to think you No one's going to think you're like.
Yes, I thought it was fourth down. What's it to you? You know?
Yeah.
Come on.
How many
Cut me some
Super Bowls have you
slack.
won? Yeah. How many Super Bowls have
Yeah,
you
exactly, right? That's exactly how it should be said.
Yeah, like you don't have to lie. A young guy, I understand why he lies. I forgot what down it was. I've won 6 Super Bowls. Next, like
all he had to do was put the 4 fingers up, and then on the other hand, put the 2 up. What's that?
like Tom Brady's the king of the last laugh.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to the North. And that means we're going to start in the North with the Chicago Bears and all the quarterback drama going on there. I find it funny watching ESPN and these commentators talk about how everything's going on and who should be the quarterback and what are they doing here with Fields and Dalton, and I don't know. I mean, I'm just shocked that Pace and Nagy are still there, to tell you the truth. So
I think everybody's shocked about that.
yeah, so they brought them back, and now I just have to feel maybe Nagy's going, well, it didn't work the last time when I threw Trubisky to the Wolves, so maybe I got to do it a different way. I don't know. Look, I'm not even trying to tell you that I'm all bought in that if Justin Fields starts week 1, he ain't going to make a ton of mistakes. And I'm not sure that's the best or not the best thing to do anyway. So I'm not like some of the people who were just going, oh, my God, look how great he looks. He has to start. That's just nonsense. But look, when you have Andy Dalton on the team, I have no problem with that. Sooner or later, Justin Fields will get in there, and it could be in a month, and it could be by midseason.
The thing about it, you started off with the right thing there, Greg. Is like the thing about it is usually when you have a rookie quarterback, you're planning for the long-term future. Nagy and Pace can't do that. They have to play right now whichever guy gives them the best chance to win, because they can't go 4-13 and say, well, we played a rookie quarterback, we are building for the future. No, they're not going to be there if that happens. So they need to play whichever quarterback they think gives them the best chance to win. So that, in essence, is kind of fun. It's really a true quarterback battle. There's no ulterior motives. It really is best guy wins, not, like we're saying with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo in San Fran. They can bring them along slowly. They don't have to necessarily play the best guy. They can play the best guy for right now. No, the Bears have to play the best guy.
And look, I think if they could shore up that offensive line, I think the offense could be just fine, because you look at it, now they have Mooney to go along with Robinson, and Cole Kmet could have a breakout year at tight end. And then, your boy from last year is my boy this year, David Montgomery at running back. I think Khalil Herbert's a really nice rookie pickup. They picked up Daz Newsome. So I think the offensive line has got to protect them. And they did draft Jenkins in round 2. So he's got to start. But
you see me throwing red flags in the air right now. That defense, the way they played against the Bills, the Bears starting defense against the Bills, against Trubisky of all people. I mean, it was just, I think what was the first 5 drives were like all touchdowns,
I don't know.
right?
Yeah, I was.
The Bears defense, I know Khalil Mack's there, but the Bears defense is, look, forget the 86 Bears. This might not be the 96 Bears defense.
Well, and that would be a coordinator thing, because the talent seems to still be there with Roquan Smith and Khalil Mack, even though we even talked about it last year. I mean, Mack is still talked about as one of the greatest players on defense. And yet I don't mind the tackles, which he puts up, and he'll even put up a sack here or there, but he's not making game-changing plays. That's why you pay a guy as much as they pay Mack to change the game. He's not doing that. So
yeah, I'm not. I think the Bears are probably in the 5 or 6 win range, which is a good thing for the Giants, who hold their first-round pick next year.
What are their odds then, do you think?
I think I'm more down on them than most people, but I'll say probably in the 50-1 range.
66, yep, right around there. The Bears 66-1. Let's go to Detroit and the Lions. This is all about rebuilding. I like the long-term outlook for the Lions. I really do. But the short term, it might be a little ugly. It's all going to depend on how quickly Jared Goff, maybe tries to show everybody that he's not as bad as everybody thinks.
Yeah, and do they finally have a running game? I don't think they've had a running back since like Barry Sanders, right? The story with Matthew Stafford was he only had The last guy to rush for 100 yards there before DeAndre Swift was like Reggie Bush. So with DeAndre Swift, they should finally have a running game. I love Dan Campbell. I love everything he stands for. I love his honesty. I could see players wanting to play hard for this guy. I just don't think it's a very talented team, but I think it's a team that'll punch you in the mouth. I wouldn't be surprised if they're 3-10 and upset somebody who's 10-3 in Week 14.
Sure.
That would not surprise me at all. I think they'll play hard for this guy.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're very good.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a lot better as the season wears on. And yeah, they
Right.
have Swift, Jamal Williams, and I'm a big Jamar Jefferson fan from the 7th round. So I think they have really good running back depth finally. Hawkinson could break out. They drafted the offensive lineman early. They have Ragnow at center and Decker. So they got to get the receiver situation straightened out over the next couple of years. And then also defensively, I think, it's going to take some time, but there's some talent there. So yeah, it's going to be a long season, but there's hope. What are the odds for Detroit?
Oh, gotta be 100 to 1.
250.
Yeah,
1.
gotta. Yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
They are the long shot of long
I
shots.
thought 100 was the I thought the 100. I wasn't gonna say it when I said 100.
That was the high bar.
I thought that was the high
Yeah.
watermark. I didn't realize we went to 250. What are the Texans? 1,000 to 1?
I haven't looked at the AFC, but they're on the bottom too. Yeah. Green Bay, the Packers. So are they ready now? Is it time to make it? Because they're not going to remember last year at this time when everybody was trashing them. Well, nobody's trashing them this year. So it's just, it's all,
Not me. I wasn't trashing them.
yeah, I know.
Not me.
That's
This
what,
guy-
yeah, you corrected everybody. So now it's Aaron Rodgers, last stand, possibly. What do you see happening here?
I think they're right what they always are. They're going to win the division, probably get a bye in the playoffs, and then they'll have to probably beat Tampa Bay if they want to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, Devontae Adams is an awesome receiver. Aaron Rodgers will be as motivated as ever. I don't know if they can cover the pass. That's what killed them against Tampa Bay last year. They should be able to rush the passer. It's pretty much the same team. I think talent-wise on the field, I think motivation-wise, they probably have a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder because they realize it's their last run, all those guys. But I think you know exactly what the Packers are. 14-3, 13-4, 12-5, get a bye. And whether they're home or Tampa Bay's home, it's probably a second or third round playoff matchup. And winner goes to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they have 3 first-round draft picks in the secondary now, and Kevin King was resigned, so I'm sure Packer fans like that. Eric Stokes was the first rounder, so he's going to have to be a big part.
Felt like a reach.
What's that?
Felt like a reach to me.
Yeah, so I agree. So they're going to have to do something there. But look, I will say this though. I think their odds are worth taking.
15 to 1.
That's 14 to 1. That's that's a number I like.
Yeah.
All right, Minnesota. Boy, they had a season to forget last year. The defense, they went through so many changes. They were going with a lot of young kids, and it showed. And then they had the major injuries. Hunter went down, and a couple other guys went down, and it was just a disaster. But everybody's back, as far as I could tell. And it's now, once again, up to Kirk Cousins.
Yep. This could be Kirk Cousins last year as a starter in the NFL. Look, Dalvin Cook is a really good player. Justin Jefferson was unbelievable. They have a lot of talent, and if the defense gets it together, I know Everson Griffin's back there now. If the defense gets it together, those guys mature, I think there's a chance that they're a playoff team. They're a long way from the Packers. They're an 8-9, 9-8 kind of team.
All right, what do you think Minnesota is?
35 to 1.
Yeah, 40 to 1. The Vikings. Let's turn our last attention now to the East. The Dallas Cowboys.
The division I know the best. Let's go.
And the Cowboys, it looks like they got some COVID outbreak going on there. The Dallas Cowboys, Look, I don't like at all what I'm hearing. Every time I'm hearing stuff about Dak Prescott, it doesn't seem like it's very good. So
Right.
they're going to talk about babying somebody. They better baby him. We know if he's healthy that their offense is going to be fine, but that offensive line was just a disaster last year after the injuries. So they got to keep those guys healthy. The defense is terrible. So they went out and they drafted Parsons. I don't know if that's good enough.
I've heard some NFL coaches say they expect him to be hands down defensive rookie of the year. So he could be a transcendent kind of linebacker if he stays on the field. So I think that helps. Look, the Cowboys secondary was the problem last year. It wasn't the linebacker, it wasn't the pass rush. It was the fact that their offensive line, it was the fact they lost Dak. Their offensive line was hurt. All the Tyron Smiths and Zach Martin's stalwarts that they've had over the years. And the secondary was woeful. So really, their biggest acquisition of the offseason to me is Dan Quinn, who we know is a good defensive coordinator, who we know knows how to teach secondary play from his day with the Seahawks. So I think really to them it's almost to me it's about coaching for them and it's about quarterback. If Dak Prescott's healthy, it's not just his ankle anymore, it's his shoulder. Seems very unlikely to me he makes 17 starts and they no longer have the Andy Dalton security blanket.
Yeah, they did draft 3 defensive backs, so at least Kelvin Joseph better step up.
We just talked about how that worked for the Vikings, though, drafting all those defensive backs last.
Yeah. Well, they're going to have to add some. Well, they did add Terrell Basham from the Jets, but I think that's about it to help out as far as pass rush is concerned. All right.
They lost all.
Let's. By the way, Cowboys. What do you think their number is?
They're always inflated, right? Because people bet on them. I don't know, 20, 25 to 1.
Yeah, 30 to 1. Now it's time to talk about the New York Giants. You know a little bit about what's going on with the Giants, right?
I do.
We have not seen anything of Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney yet.
Here's the problem with the Giants. They were the 31st ranked scoring offense last year. The owner, the general manager, the players themselves said, we need more playmakers. Sterling Shepard said, get us some help. So they go out, they get Kenny Golladay, they get Kyle Rudolph, they get Kadarius Toney, they get John Ross, and they re-add Saquon Barkley, who missed all but 1.5 games last year, right? So they have 5 guys that should bolster the offense, right? None of those guys has practiced since August 3rd. So the offense that they're playing with in practice right now is the same offense that finished 31st in the NFL last year, only without a starting guard and without Golden Tate. So, look, to me, if they're fully healthy, they're a better team. If they're not, they're a worse team. And really, it comes down to you can add all the playmakers in the world. The Giants have an offensive line of 5 guys who are 25 years of age or younger. None of them are sure things. Some of them are first-round picks. Some of them are undrafted. Most of them are on their first contracts. It's a high ceiling, low basement offensive line. You want to say the Giants are a 7 or 8 win team? I'll tell you the offensive line could bump it to 9 or 10 or drop it to 4 or 5. That's really the Giants in a nutshell, and a great defense.
Ooh, a great defense, he says.
A top 10, great might be an overstay. A top 10 defense.
Okay, best defense they've had in a while then.
Best defense they've had since probably the Super Bowl. Oh, no, since 16 when they made the playoffs, and before that, since the Super Bowl teams.
Do they have who's their under-the-radar player on defense that maybe the nation doesn't really know too much about this guy?
Well, they have 3 stars on defense. Leonard Williams, had 11.5 sacks last year. Blake Martinez is a tackling machine, and James Bradbury is a Pro Bowl corner. If you're looking for an under-the-radar guy, I'll say Xavier McKinney. He's actually kind of their 3rd safety, but he'll be on the field as much as a starter will be. 2nd-round pick last year, really came on towards the end of last season after missing most of his rookie year with an injury. I think he could really, he could show you that 2nd-round pick and actually bump out Jabril Peppers going forward.
What are the Giants?
Ooh, great question. I see. That's another team I'm probably lower on than most people. 40-1.
80-1.
Oh no, I'm okay. The rest of the world's as low on them as I am. Yeah, there might be lower. I bumped. I would have said 50-1. I bumped it to 40 because I thought the rest of the nation would be on them. 80-1's too low. It's too low.
Well, they're right there with Carolina and Atlanta.
It's too low. They're not as bad as those teams.
Oh, okay. Well, those teams have better quarterbacks. No, actually, just one of those teams has better quarterback.
Yeah. No, it's too low.
All right. Let's now talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. And boy, things are not looking very good right now. What are they doing at quarterback right now?
Let me tell you about the Eagles. Here's what I wrote recently about the Eagles. Teams that have really good offensive and defensive lines are not usually bad. And the Eagles have a really good offensive line and a really good defensive line. All the guys from the Super Bowl are still there, like Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. They're all still there. So teams with really good offensive and defensive lines are not usually bad. So it's hard to say the Eagles are going to be terrible. But teams with huge question marks at quarterback and head coach are not usually good. And the Eagles, call it what it is, they didn't want either of these guys. They didn't want to fire Doug Peterson. They wanted him to make changes. He refused, so he got fired. So they didn't really want Nick Sirianni. They wanted Doug Peterson to make changes. He didn't do it. He got fired. They didn't want Jalen Hurts to be their starting quarterback. They wanted Carson Wentz, and he essentially quit on the team and forced the trade. The Eagles didn't pick Jalen Hurts to say, you know what, he's our starter in 2021. They were hoping he'd be a long-term backup and maybe trade bait. They didn't think he was going to replace Carson Wentz. So they have two guys they didn't even really want as their quarterback and head coach. To me, that's a formula for a pretty bad team. And all those veterans on the offensive and defensive line, that helps you play well. But at the same time, if you're bad, those veteran guys are the first guys to pack their suitcases.
They could have drafted one of the quarterbacks. And they didn't.
They could have. Yeah.
I mean, I don't. And then you take a look at what Devonta Smith, and he finally got in and is playing, but it's like you just get this feeling there's something like the air is just not very good in that locker room, and the Eagles are just, no matter how talented they might even be this year, that it's not going to work out. That it's just going to be a long season.
Here's what I'll tell you. That's my perception from afar. That seems to be the nation's perception from afar. I know a lot of Philly writers who are very high on this team, a sleeper playoff team. They see them every day. And I always say, I get offended when people who don't cover the Giants every day tell me how good the Giants are. I'm at practice. I see them. So I tend to lean with the people who cover the team day in, day out. And they think the Eagles are good. I don't. But hearing them, I bumped the Eagles from like a 4-win team to like a 6-win team, just because I think they might be better based on look. I saw them practice one day against the Jets earlier this week, a joint practice. The Eagles were on that day far superior to the Jets. I mean, far outclassed them physically, speed-wise, etc. Far outclassed the Jets.
That's just showing you how practice sometimes doesn't really mean everything. So, look, if that's the case, then Jalen Hurts is the secret weapon that is ready to just take the league by storm. Because I never believed it. There's nothing that he's shown so far in anything that I've seen on the field so far as a pro to make me change my mind. And until that happens, they're not going anywhere. They're not doing anything. So they don't have that good of a defense to mask inconsistent quarterback play like that. So, all right, what's the odds?
Oh God, I can't even guess the Eagles' odds because they're everywhere, so all over the place. You said the Giants were 80-1. Eagles are probably 80-1, 75, 80-1,
100.
Okay.
Washington. Look, Washington won the division last year, so I guess the Eagles could win the division this year. Anything's possible if Washington won the division last year. So what? It's now how many years that we've had a different champion?
I think it's 2004 was the last time.
Well, this isn't going to be that difficult to think that Washington will be the team that won't, duplicate it.
Correct. I would pick them to repeat. Yes.
Yeah. Ryan Fitzpatrick is with his 20th team. And the running game looks okay now that they've added Patterson, nice little young, kid from nowhere to go along with Gibson. They've got the weapons at receiver. They got a weapon at tight end at Logan Thomas. So the offensive line, they've had to make some changes there. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is a 500 quarterback. So it's all up to that defense, which is a strong defense. They're a good defensive team. They're a well-coached team.
I agree. They're a well-coached team with a good defense, a really good defensive line. I think Chase Young could be defensive MVP player of the year this year. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I think they're probably a team where Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to win them some games, lose them some games. The defense will win them some games. I think they're probably 9-8, 10-7, which in the NFC East could win you the division by 2 or 3 games.
Odds?
So 50-1?
40-1. And that makes them the second choice behind Dallas in the NFC.
But that's overplayed just because they're Dallas.
Pretty much. Yeah. And look, Washington, if they actually had a quarterback that you would go, wow, he's a top 10 quarterback, they could be a Super Bowl contender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The one thing with that team is Ron Rivera seems to almost despise his players. Like the guys who aren't getting unvaccinated, he's losing his mind. I wonder, the team to really watch in the NFC with all the vaccination stuff is the Bills season could be just totally ruined by vaccination status and locker room fighting. That would be a shame because I think they're a Super Bowl team. But the Washington could be the second team in the NFL whose vaccination status just implodes their season.
All right, next week we'll talk AFC football. And then we'll have our prediction show the week of the regular season. Were you working on anything, Ryan?
No, just wrapping up training camp, really, honestly. I get the post. I'll have an interesting story when the season rolls around on how and when your first-year coach, and really this applies to the whole NFL, how and when your first-year coach is the right guy. Like, it's easy if you hire Matt LaFleur and you go 14-2 or whatever, and you're like, oh, we got the right guy. But if you hire Joe Judge and you're 1-7, if you hire Robert Saleh and you're losing in the first year, you knew he was the right guy when you hired him in January. Now the losses are mounting. How and when do you know if you have the right guy in that first year when the losses are mounting? I called a lot of people who have hired coaches, got a lot of funny quotes, a lot of insight. I think it's a pretty good story. How and when your first-year coach is the right guy when you're not winning.
All right. I know my logical answer to that is kind of open. It's a little vague, but it's when you're losing, you want to see how your team responds with the coach. How does that coach respond to all the losing? How does he maintain the positiveness in the locker room with the players? Does he lose the locker room within a couple of weeks of losing? Do they now doubt the coach, even though they know that it's a long? We're never going to the playoffs to begin with, but have they lost faith in the coach already? But
how would that manifest itself? How would you know that? I agree with you. That's part of it.
That's why I'm saying it was a little vague. It's
yeah. You got to tell me more. I tried to get. You're right. That's the obvious answer, but. Do you know that based on penalties, on final scores, on questions in the media?
Does the team play hard 60 minutes?
Yeah.
I think you can judge that.
But then all of a sudden it's like, well, they're playing hard, but we have injured guys out. We have too many injuries, so they might be playing hard, but we're still getting our ass kicked. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So.
All right, Ryan, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.